Guys, I'm Katie Dykstra. I'm the incoming president for our new chapter. I'm not sure if you guys have seen our newsletters or if this is your first time, welcome. As the incoming president for two chapters combining. So NHRC and SHRM are actually coming together as one chapter. We are doing that in January because of tax purposes. So right now we're doing everything behind the scenes to get us ready to make that happen. If you're not on the newsletter, once you sign in and you put your email address on there, we're going to send you a follow-up email that's going to have access to this recording. We have a YouTube channel so you can see it, but you'll also be part of our newsletter so that you can hear the upcoming events that are going on. Next month is a virtual event, and it's going to be a legal update about all the laws that are changing in 2023. So I highly recommend it. John Stanos is the one that's speaking. If you guys haven't heard him before, he's like an attorney, but a comedian at the same time. He's a wealth of information, and we're making it virtual because he recently moved to Florida. So lucky for him, he is not enjoying snow right now. But a background about me, I fell into HR. I've talked to a couple of you today, and I've heard it from a few people. I started off in loss prevention. My undergrad's in law enforcement, and I got an internship with Walgreens. So their headquarters is in Deerfield, and I started specializing in employee relation investigations. I fell in love with it. I love the idea of talking to people, hearing their story, and then figuring out ways to help. Now, employee relations is not always fun, but it really opened the door for me that I started to fall in love with people and like helping people grow and figuring out solutions so that they were in a better place than where I saw them previously. From there, I had a wonderful attorney that kind of pulled me over, and she said, you know what, you need to go get your degree in HR management. So I went up to Roosevelt University, did nights and weekends for 2 years to get my HR management, and then I was running the employee relations department once I graduated. So from there, I really got involved with leadership development at Walgreens, helped out with a couple acquisitions, started storytelling with data, which was something new back then, about 15 years ago, storytelling to the business about what's going on. And that's kind of when the light bulb went off for me, because I started on the business side, like I told you with loss prevention, is that we have a story to tell as HR professionals, and we can tell that story through data. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. What's going on with the workforce, all the stats that are going on, keep hearing about recession. We're going to connect all those together. In my free time, I like to volunteer. Obviously, I'm volunteering being on our new chapter next year as the incoming president. I'm also on a couple other different boards. And then in my free time, I run my kiddos to a lot of sports and events, and I like to travel when I can. So I like to be outside. But that's a little about me. If you want to connect via LinkedIn, why is that on there? How do we do that?
I think you said got it.
Just say got.
Yeah. Can you do got it on there? Because I don't think I can over here. I don't think it's a touch screen. Perfect. Thank you. But if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, that's my QR code. So you can just scan it on your cell phone and it'll bring you straight to my LinkedIn. So what we're going to talk about today is what's going on with the workforce. It has been crazy. COVID really pivoted how we do work in HR. I just heard a stat recently saying that HR professionals are leaving faster than we're getting HR professionals in. And that is fascinating to me because we hear about burnout, right? But HR is burning out faster than any other occupation right now. Sounds accurate, right? With everything that we've been dealing with. So what we're going to do is talk about some stats about what's going on with the workforce, look back at what happened with COVID, bring us to what's going on right now and how that's going to focus on the future. And with that, we're going to talk about how you guys can look at different areas for talent. And that means non-traditional talent. That means like what you've been hearing about diversity recruiting, working with your community. We're going to talk about transferable skills. And then we're going to talk about how you can use internal data points to build out your workforce planning. And a lot of people will come to me like, I don't have data in HR. You do. It just might be more of a manual tool for you to get it, but you can get it. And the other piece is some data points could just be talking to people as well. And that is still data for you. And then lastly, we'll just talk about how to be, what employers should do. Like, how do you be an employer of choice? Because that's really what's going to have to happen with the war on talent that's going on. All right, so I find this really fascinating. There was a consulting company that decided to do a survey in April of 2020, and they asked employees what was important to them, like what stood out. And this is the responses that they had. They said, you know, remote work's really important because COVID just hit and I need to work remote so I feel safe and my family feels safe. And they talked about perks, meaning like your work might have it that you get a discount on your cell phone, or they might have a discount that you can go take a class at a community college or at a university. And then job security, because what did we see? Everybody was getting laid off when it happened. And then they talked about diversity and inclusion, right? George Floyd was around that time too. And so these pieces in history started to really fuel about what is my company doing from a DEI standpoint. And the last piece was sympathy. I had friends that literally became caregivers for their parents, and they moved in with their parents to take care of them with everything that was going on. Or in my case, I foster failed. I saw that on the news where they said you had to take care of the dogs and the cats at the animal shelter because they didn't have enough space. So I took on a dog for the first time in my life, and it's been interesting. But again, having sympathy for meeting the person where they're at in life. They asked the same exact questions in 2021 in April. And this is the responses. So a year later, what was important to them? It was flexibility now. So now it's, can I work these core hours at my convenience? So maybe we only have meetings 9 to 12 and the rest of it I can flex the way I need to based on my life. We've never seen the big amount of increases that have happened. It's the largest amount that we've had in 20 years when you look at compensation increases in employers. 2021 started that because they wanted to retain people, right? There was that war on talent where people were leaving and getting, I had my sister leave the insurance industry and go to a hospital. She got a 40% increase. So it's nuts what's taking place from a compensation. The other piece is career development or career pathing. People want to know when they're interviewing with you, what are you going to do to develop me, to keep me engaged and get me to that next point in my life? And if you don't have that, they're probably not going to be very interested in you. And then the last piece is it no more is about diversity programs, but they want to see the inclusion process. Like, what are you doing to put actions in place? We've talked about diversity programs, the last 5 years that it's been a really big thing. Well, by this time, you should actually have some action in place. It shouldn't just be words of this is our strategy. And then culturally embedded just means with people working remote, in person, hybrid, what are you doing to make sure that everybody understands the language and the lingo at your organization and they feel like they fit in? Are you able to explain that to someone so they fit that culture and feel like they're part of something? And then the biggest skill that they said leadership is learning right now is empathy. And that's a switch, right? We've heard about other things that managers and leaders need to know, but they're saying the future is empathy, not sympathy. All right, so this is other fascinating things. So these are just some quick facts of what's going on with COVID, what we saw. So the aftermath. What we've seen is people are only staying at organizations now every 3 years. And if they come on board with you, and let's say they don't have a great experience in the first 6 months, they don't even put it on their resume or on their LinkedIn. That's why you're seeing a delayed response where people are announcing where they're working because they're hesitant. I've had a bad experience in my career where I did a misstep. I'm sure everybody else has one time in your life had the red flags, but you still went for the job. That's what's happening here. If you're not meeting up to what they're looking for, they're out. There's 10 million job openings in the US. We don't even have enough people to fill it. And that trend is going to continue. And the issue is there's people. It's just people that don't specialize in the skill that you're looking for. 40% of your employees are looking right now, and they say the other 60 are being poached. I'm sure you guys have gotten LinkedIn messages, phone calls, had a friend of a friend reach out saying, hey, are you interested in jumping? That's because everybody's looking for talent. And the biggest thing that I think that hit home for me is turnover is going to go up. And I remember about 10 years ago, if you told people that you had double digits for turnover, they were like, oh, how could that be? Now they're saying it's going to continue to grow, that you are going to see turnover like no other. And they're saying on average, it's going to be about 25% no matter what industry you're in. Obviously, if you're in hospitality, retail, those are going to be higher numbers as it is in general. But we're talking about stable industries that are struggling with that. And the other piece is our birth rate is low. Millennials are choosing not to have kids. People are figuring out in their life that they might want to have pets instead. And so if that's going to happen, that means we're going to have more trouble in the future when it comes to these jobs. So we got all fascinating things going on with what COVID did to us. Okay, so this is the interesting part when we talk about right now. So we got 8 weeks left until the end of the year. People are forecasting that 1 in 5 people plan on quitting their job. And they might even have a backup plan that they're just quitting. Half of employers are saying they're going to lay off in the next 12 months. You're already seeing that trend the last 3 months that we're seeing tech companies like crazy laying off. 2 million jobs are at risk of going unfilled. This is specifically when we talk about manufacturing. So what's happening in manufacturing is we're bringing in technology but people don't have that skill, the technology, and working in manufacturing on the floor. So how do we bring that to them so we can start filling it? If you guys look at old news articles, and we talk about Americans quitting their job, in November of 2021, we had 4.5 million. And if you look up that number, type that into your computer and Google it, you'll see quotes in there saying, this is never going to happen again. This is a one-time deal that Americans are quitting at this rapid rate. Yet a few months later, we had it happen again in March of 2022. The other piece that we're seeing is the grass is not always greener on the other side. So, right, you get that big title that you wanted because you left your place, or you get a huge increase, and then you get there and the other pieces aren't so great, right? The grass isn't always greener. So what we're finding is there's an opportunity for boomerangs. And if you're not familiar with boomerangs, what you can do is a strategy going back to your people that were high performers that left your organization because maybe they wanted to become a leader, or maybe they got an opportunity to learn a skill. And if they left in the last 1 to 3 years, go back out to them, ask them if they're willing to come back, because there's probably a good chance they might be interested. Yeah. And then the last piece that I think is like the key of the future when we talk about where we're going, contingent workforce. Globally, we're at 42%. In America, they're saying it'll be 55% by 2034. Why is that key? Because a lot of employers don't even think about contingent or part-time workers. They want full-time. But what we're seeing is COVID did a reawakening. It really made you question your values, your characteristics, your time with your family. And with that, that means that some people aren't looking for full-time. They might be looking just for a project, or they might just be looking at, is there any way I can work these core hours while my kids are at school? I think about with my dad, one of the things, my dad got diagnosed with cancer 6 years ago. With that, my dad goes to get treatment every other week. I remember one of my requests when I was looking for a job was, I need Fridays, can I work remote? Because I would take my dad to chemo. I'd work on my laptop. It gave my dad like a smile to his face because he's retired. He was able to talk with it. But my employer was meeting me where I'm at in life. I had to take care of someone. And so we talk about, can you meet people where they're at? Yeah.
Just wanted to throw this out maybe to the group, or if you have like the contingent workforce. I'm just kind of curious about, you know, it seems like the older worker like myself during COVID, or even pre-COVID, who maybe took retirement early, you know, said, I'm done, you know, COVID really had such an impact. And if the, you know, the over 50 is going to be a contingent, like if that's an untapped population for the future, because we're living, you know, we're vital, we're living till our 90s, and yet they say, you know, I'm done with my primary job, the 9 to 5, you know, all that, but I still want to contribute, and I still want, and if that's like an untapped market, and if I'm just curious if anybody is seeing that in your organizations, you know, where, you know, tapping into people who have, you know, left the older worker.
Yeah, actually boomers are coming back into the workforce faster than any other generation right now. So they're coming out of retirement to go back into consulting, or just to give back a skill that they have of knowledge, because we haven't been able to give that knowledge to the next group that's coming over there.
Yeah.
So with that, it's interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah. And then, you know, there's that, they're knowledge workers. They know, you know, and it's where, you know, somebody else who comes in who you have to really train. And I just think that that's like such an untapped market for.
It's a mentor potential as well.
Yeah, exactly. It is. Yeah.
Right.
And if I'm curious if organizations are kind of tapping into that, you know, like when people are, you know, during our exit interviews, or we're keeping that door open because we might, you know.
I love that you say, are you asking about it in the exit interviews? Because that's really key. What do you ask when people are leaving?
Yeah.
The other piece is you can source on LinkedIn and put retired. So you can find that clientele if you really wanted to start to find people that could go back into the workforce. But they're coming right back in.
They're coming back in.
They're coming in part-time.
Right.
They're coming in just for a project.
Right.
And I love about what you said with mentoring, because when we find out someone's retiring in the companies I've worked at, we work on a plan to make sure that knowledge is transferred, so that there is someone else taking it on.
Yeah.
So it's always great to have those conversations during one-to-ones about if they do plan on retiring, what does that look like? because we want to make sure that we're, one, able to get them on that retirement date that they want, but two, can they help start, I want to say, yeah.
Yeah. And I read recently too that some organizations, and I was part of this years ago when we thought that everybody, all the boomers were going to retire, the mass exodus, the brain drain, and then nobody left, to offer like retirement transition coaching, you know, like to help them with that transition, because they see that as a valued workforce. So we want them to leave the organization feeling good about us and keeping that door open.
Yeah, they talk about that actually. That is a huge shift in people.
Mhm.
Where just like if you guys were doing mass layoffs, you give coaching and transitioning for the people that are trying to find their next job. But that the same thing should be happening to people that are retiring,
Right.
because the struggle is real. They have to find purpose now, right? They
Right.
spent 40+ hours a
Right.
week doing something, and now they have to hopefully have hobbies. And if they don't, what can we do for them to give back?
Mhm.
So that's great points. There's a couple other pieces that I find really fascinating that I'm gonna bring up real quick. Currently, women in the labor workforce is the lowest that it's been in 50 years.
The lowest.
The lowest. Think about that. We've had wars, we've had all kinds of stuff, and we're saying it's the lowest that we've seen women in the workforce. Women are leaving faster than any other group right now. And I think it's got to do a lot with the burnout, and I think the managing of everything.
Yeah.
So the question is, as employers, what are we doing to help support that?
Right.
The other piece is in February of 2020, we only had 5% of our remote workforce. By June 2022, 50% of the workforce is still remote.
50.
5% for February and 50% right now in 2022. And you guys can see it with the job postings that have been happening on LinkedIn. It is insane if you can see it of how many people have applied for a job once it's remote versus the ones that you're seeing that says Chicagoland area.
They don't.
It is like 20 times the amount, like within hours of people
And
applying.
hybrid.
And I'll tell
Hybrid's
you,
huge.
hybrid is huge, and it's very interesting depending on where you're at in life. So what we're hearing from the younger generation that's just getting into the workforce, that it's really important for them to actually be on site because they
Yeah.
want to have those connections.
Me too, yeah.
But we're hearing from the other groups that have actually benefited from being remote, that they want to stay because it works out really well with flexibility. So how do you meet people where they're at? There are some organizations that said, hey, we're keeping our doors open, but it's up to you to figure out how often you want to come in. And what we have found is that it's been more of a positive outcome if you let them decide versus you telling them. So what we've been seeing when people are responding to exit surveys is that I felt forced to come back into that office versus you giving me an option.
We didn't find that. We closed our office in Naperville. We did open. We did a soft opening a year ago in July, and we told people, you know, we're gonna. Well, everybody took their equipment home, right? So
Right.
I had an office with empty desks. So we re-established about half the equipment, did a soft opening, killed myself to get the building ready to go. And nobody came to the party.
They're not coming.
Ever.
They're not coming.
So
in.
it's gone.
Wow.
It's shut down.
We're doing a hybrid, but we're structuring it because we don't want to lose our culture, and we need people to come together and collaborate. And when it was remote, we had, well, because we do have we're distribution, so we had to have our warehouse employees, and then a few of the county people had to be there, and there was some dissension going on of why are they working from home and we have to be here, and we're spending gas money. So we're doing the hybrid right now, and it's working fairly well.
Are you asking people to come, like saying on like I've heard that anchor days, like Tuesday, Wednesday, everybody needs to be in, but then the other 3 days.
Well, what we did is we set the days, so we never have everybody in on this at one time, but if we have a company event or somebody coming in that we need everybody to be there, I just set it on an announcement. Hey, Wednesday is an on-site day, everybody needs to be here. And that's in our policy saying, we have the flexibility to say that if we need everybody in the building at the same time, we're gonna request that and you need to.
Yeah.
And we also say, and they don't like this, but we don't want people to be back and forth. So they've got their 2 set days and then their 3 set days in the office.
Because they need that.
It's a structure.
Yeah.
But if you're called in on a Wednesday, we just need everybody in, then that doesn't mean that you get to take an extra day off during that week. It just means, hey, just one week, you just need to work 4 days rather than
Yeah.
3 in the office.
And is that working?
It is
It
working.
is working.
Yes,
Good.
we've started out with a 90-day trial period and we did an evaluation and we're saying we're gonna move ahead with it. It's working.
Nice.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Well, I think you gotta meet people where they're at,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of people are saying that remote work won't exist. They're saying people are all gonna be forced back into the office
Oh,
and then it's not going to. I don't think
I-
that's the case.
I can't
I think they're
imagine
crazy
that.
because I think this has really changed where we're at. But the other staggering part about what's going on is after 2 years of being in the pandemic, 2.75 million people are in the workforce, like less than
Less.
before February 2020.
Yep.
Where are they going?
They're
They
This
just
is what's
decided not to
curious.
work,
Are they
right?
saying I'm not working?
So when we talk about that awakening that I was just saying, some people are going back to doing part-time or consulting or
Yeah.
contingent, or they're going back to being that stay-at-home mom or that caregiver to your
Yeah.
elderly parents.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely
Simpler
changed.
life.
Yeah, so
Or the
it's
gig economy? Or
the
what?
gig
I'm
economy and
sorry.
contingents is the future, and a
What
lot
did-
of people
I'm
don't
sorry,
see
what
it.
did you?
Gig economy
Oh,
is
the
the
gig,
future.
yeah, right, right.
Well, with the people that are quitting with no plan, what are they doing? Where are they going?
I mean, the people that I've talked to that have done that stashed a bunch of money away when they
Okay.
were in COVID and
So
built it
are they-
out so
are
that
they
they
taking
can
a
live
break?
off of
I,
it.
that's what I'm thinking COVID just had such on all of us. It's like to rethink, okay, what's important to me? Life is too short. And it's a reset. And then
Okay.
now, I don't know, it's just,
I agree.
I have no,
I think perspective
yeah, and
changed quite
then
a
we're
bit.
gonna see a shift because we're exhausted. I mean, everybody, I mean, people are like, and especially on HR, I mean, HR was like the superhero during the COVID and it elevated, I think, the profession
Mhm.
tremendously. And people are just like, I need a break. I need a break. I don't, I mean,
It was heavy.
Well, I
it
think-
was.
I think what
heavy.
people are doing too is reevaluating what's important.
Yeah.
When COVID
Yes.
hit, I worked at O'Hare Airport and I had to let go of 250 people. I was 251. And then I sat there going, I got to figure out what's important. Money wasn't important to me anymore. Happiness was as part of my compensation. So that's the way I see it.
Absolutely. I mean, go ahead.
I have a daughter-in-law who's a nurse and she was working in the office because she does workers' comp. We love to tell stories. But she was working remote and now the whole entire office, they're not going back to the office and she absolutely loves it because now she's in the house when the kids leave for school and they come home. So I see both sides of it. I really do.
Yeah. But wait, a nurse is remote?
Yes, because she's a case manager.
Oh,
nurse.
okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I definitely think it's shifted, all
Yeah.
right? People are reprioritizing. When I think of my dad would always say to me when I was like, man, work sucks. He's like, suck it up, buttercup.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
That's what we say to
that
our
was my
kids.
experience through life. So when things got hard, I was like, okay, suck it up, buttercup. I can get through this.
Yeah.
But it has shifted, right? Now it's like, no, I'm not selling my soul to the devil. I'm gonna be reasonable with my decision making.
Yeah.
Because think about what you guys have experienced as being in HR. It's
Yeah.
been rough.
It's been rough.
And it's gonna continue to get rough as we're navigating these new waters.
It's uncharted. It's a big, big social experiment and we're all figuring it out.
But yeah, we have to change how we're managing. It's no longer, oh no, we're always in the office. Now it's, what do you need?
Yeah.
We have to be
Empathy.
more empathetic.
And that whole empathetic leader, because I find, we do leadership development and leaders, because you were remote and you were seeing everybody, the kids are running in the background and, it humanized like your managers and your leaders. And I think, and we're like asking leaders, because I don't know if it's still a stat that the number one reason people leave organizations is their relationship with their boss. But they saw the humanness, we were, and for a manager or a leader to say, I'm not sure how to, I'm not sure how to handle this situation. It really humanized.
It does.
And we're expecting that now, people are expecting more of that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I used to be embarrassed like a scarlet letter to say I'm divorced and I have a dad that has cancer. And I'll tell you now, being proud of the experiences that I've had, not that I love having a father that has cancer, but it's been amazing how that's opened the door to have some really
Yeah.
great conversations of what other people are battling. but I'm sure they felt the same way I felt. Like it was like a scarlet letter. Like none of my friends are divorced. None of my friends are dealing with parents that are dying. And so it's really humanized it, right? You get the good, the bad, and the ugly with me. But I also think that opens the door of building trust and establishing it, right? They say the number one thing you can do being a new manager with going into a team is establishing that trust quickly. What better way than to bring something personal about yourself to the table that maybe a few years ago you didn't feel comfortable really
right.
talking about?
Well, it makes you approachable.
Correct,
It does.
right? And good
Yeah.
leaders meet people where they're at in life,
Yeah.
right? Our goal as leaders is to help develop that person and get them where they want to go. We're just a stop along the way. But I know I can get them motivated and develop them that they're going to be a great teammate, knowing that information. So the big interesting piece that I think of when we talk about with the workforce and where we're going is transferable skills. And you're going to hear it more and more. So if you can get ahead of the game with transferable skills, I recommend it. So it's when you go to, if you're anybody a recruiter here, anybody do recruiting? Okay. So when you sit down with that hiring manager and they list off all the skills that they need, there's like 10 of them. And you ask them like, what's critical versus what's not, they usually 9 times out of 10 will be like, they're all critical. We need all of this. And that's like finding a unicorn, right?
A purple
But-
unicorn.
A purple
A purple
unicorn,
unicorn.
right? So when we think about it from this day, what is the actual technical skill that we cannot teach versus what's transferable? Because let's be honest, everybody took a risk on us as we got into HR. I mean, I was law enforcement, man. Someone took a risk on me saying that I could do HR. Someone took a risk on you putting you in HR. So why are we not doing the same thing with the talent that we're seeing as candidates? Can't we teach one of those skills? And that's the transferable skills that you see that there's opportunity of connecting the dots. So example, what I had some of my peers do that were in HR that I absolutely thought was genius when we were talking about transferable skills when 2020 happened, is your hospitality workers did not want to work in the restaurants anymore. They didn't feel it was safe. They didn't want to work nights and weekends. They wanted to be with their family because now we saw time was important. We went after those talent for entry-level sales. Let me tell you, they're transferable and they are excellent salespeople. Why do you ask? They already have customer service. They know how to close deals and have a smile on their faces. They're doing it. The only piece that we had to teach them is about sales and closing the deal, like to teach that skill. So the only thing it cost us was time of building a training program, letting them know that stuff. So again, there's a lot of opportunity if you start looking at your industry and figuring out what's transferable, what's another industry you can tap into, and we're going to get into that a little bit further. But that is the future. So if you were to do an activity, and I'll talk about it in more detail in a couple of slides, you can start connecting the dots of thinking about transferable skills. So I gave you guys a couple examples. In the insurance company that I was working for, we have a lot of turnover that happens in claims. We can't keep them. Again, we have a lot of competitors. So competitors come and they approach them and give them more money. And when you're starting off into those roles, you're going to lose people quickly. It's like our high turnovers in claims. But with that, we started looking at teachers. You know, teachers don't have anything. They're not working for 3 months. So what can they do instead? They came work in our claims department. They're detail oriented. They're great with communicating because they work with kids and they've been amazing. The other piece is the last 2 years, law enforcement. Why do you ask law enforcement? Because I'm seeing some facial expressions. They're taught to be investigators. Claims adjusters are investigators. When they come to your house, when they look at your car to say what's wrong after your car accident, they're detailed. They're taught to write a report a certain way, just like claims adjusters. And if you haven't seen right now, people are leaving law enforcement really fast as well. That's another industry that got killed with COVID, with everything that took place with history. So again, when we start to talk about connecting the dots, these are just some small examples. When you think of the roles that you're constantly hiring for, what are those skill sets that are needed? Where do you see those skill sets somewhere else? Maybe they don't have all of them. If they have 4 out of the 5, could you teach the 5th? And what we have found is, yes, you can, and you can retain people that way too, because you're giving them an opportunity. There's a stat saying that we're going to change our career 8 times in our life. These are the people you want to do. These are one of the 8, like this are the people you can start tapping into that are ready to change and get out of their industry. The reason why you want to start looking into other industries and tapping into this stuff, you guys heard about diversity and inclusion, but really when you start tapping into talent in other places, you're bringing diversity to the table. You're getting people to think outside the box. I love bringing a new person on my team in HR because they bring the best ideas. We all have a tendency to have tunnel vision when we've been doing the job for so long, but when you bring new blood in and they say, hey, we did this here, how do you think that could work here? gets me so excited because what we do in HR is we enhance the employee experience. Down to it. So when we talk about every milestone that's in what we do in HR, we want to enhance it. We want to make it better, right? Think about how much rapid change has taken in the last 2 years. We've done a hell of a lot, and it's going to continue to be that way. It's going to be rapid. So this is just some stats from Deloitte talking about why you want to start looking at diversity and bringing different talents in. And when we talk about diversity, it doesn't always just mean race and ethnicity. We're talking about different people's backgrounds. So again, maybe they worked in a different industry. Maybe they fell into certain roles. Those are the people you want to tap into. But to see these results, it takes about 2 to 3 years. Just want to clarify, it's not an instant thing.
We're experiencing that right now. So we've hired 12 new individuals and we're a smaller company. And, you know, everybody's got their ideas and they're all coming in gangbusters. And there are a few of us that are like, whoa, what's going on here? It's like, okay, we're in a growth pattern. We just need to all keep that in mind. We're in a growth pattern. We need to be open to new ideas. And as well as the new people need to take time to learn our culture and where we're going as well and the history of our company. So it's definitely been a great experience witnessing this.
And I think I love what you're saying there because you're right. They're throwing a lot at you and you can't do everything at once, right? So how do you do that? And we're going to talk about that in the next couple of slides. So if you decide to go down that route that you guys want to do the transferable skills, what I've seen is your biggest blocker is going to be your leadership to get buy-in to what you're trying to do. So I always like to say, start with a pilot. Can't turn down a pilot. We learn lessons from it. It's real small, but you also have to meet that leader where they're at. So anytime that you do something crazy and change in the world, you got to figure out how to get the buy-in from the leaders that you need. So this is just kind of 4 steps to understand. It's kind of influencing without having the authority is how I view this. So find out what your leader's perspective is when it comes to thinking outside that box. Are they innovative? Are they not? Start to reflect on their perspective. And then how does your purpose of your idea actually help them achieve their goals? Because let me tell you, all those senior leaders got goals that they need to reach in order to say that they're performing. How do you help them with what you're trying to build? And then if you start small and you build it right, it's going to be easier to expand. And small sometimes is good with everything that we're already taking on as HR professionals. So starting it just with a little bit, then you can expand it later and you might have more help now too, because they're seeing the successes or lessons learned, right? And if you get those lessons learned, you pivot. Because what have we done the last couple of years? We've pivoted like crazy with initiatives, anything that we've rolled out in HR because of new information coming to us. So in order to do that, you got to start telling a story with data. And like I was telling you guys earlier, I had a light bulb go off when I worked at Walgreens. I was there for 13 years, started off as an intern with them and got moved into multiple roles while I was there. But I came from the business side into HR. And a light bulb went off for me is on the business side, we had access to so many pieces of data. Like I could pull anything out on a dashboard. Then I came to HR and we had nothing. I literally had to be manually pulling Excels, trying to figure out how to make pivot tables. And again, I didn't learn about pivot tables in school. We didn't have to do that in the classes that I took. So if you can start pulling those data points out, you can start forecasting. Because what's really going to be key and what we haven't really done very well as HR professionals as a group is forecasting, workforce planning. We kind of suck at it, but I think a lot of people suck at workforce planning. But that causes your problems of why you can't find talent. And then your leader's like, what the heck, that's been open for 90 days and you have no good talent for me. Why? Well, it's because we're not forecasting correctly to see that we needed that talent. So there's 4 different areas that you guys can actually tap into to start to see where your turnover is going to happen, where you might see growth, and then information. And like I told you earlier, data points doesn't just necessarily mean numbers. It could be actually connecting with people and gathering information. Okay, so let's talk about turnover. We have access to turnover. It might not be beautiful if you don't have an HRS system. You might be manually pulling from an Excel sheet, right? Not fun, but you can start to see what departments are actually having the highest turnover and where you're doing the highest hiring. So again, like I gave you the example, one of the organizations that I worked at, we hire like crazy in claims. It's just call centers just do not do well. We have a high turnover in that area. I know that going into it, so I need to plan where my pipeline coming from. You can start to see where are you doing most of the hiring. If you look 1 to 3 years back in your data, it tells a story. Now, is that area going to continue to grow with what you know with the strategic plan? Because right now, strategic planning should be almost done for you guys to think about 2023. or it should be just starting and you should finish up by December, so you're good to go in 2023. But knowing that information, yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask a question? I don't have an HR background. I have a learning and development. And so I'd be curious from the group, like, when you look at your turnover,
Mhm.
like, what are your like top reasons? As you look at your departments and you say, okay, we've got a lot of turnover here in sales, or we've got turnover, like what areas and what are the reasons? Do you have, like, I'd be curious in manufacturing, do you have any thoughts on like where your turnover is?
We have turnover with the mechanics. So just like Katie was saying, where we are investing a lot of money in technology,
Okay,
and now we need to train these employees to adapt to the technology that's growing.
so the mechanics, that's, and the reason that there's high turnover there, are they, do you know why they're like have insights into why they're leaving?
Well, one's money. So we
It's
are
money.
a smaller company,
Okay.
and then also adapting to
They-
technology.
Oh, the technology, okay.
And also when you have like low paying jobs, like a warehouse job,
Yeah,
and they're doing manual work, how long are they gonna stay? Not long.
not long.
But when I was in logistics, what I used to do is I hired not what you can do for me now, but what you can do for me down the road.
Okay,
So when I left, I had, people that I
Like-
hired
like a pipe-
as,
yeah.
I hired them as labor. I left them and they were managing
like.
the warehouse.
Okay, so you
And
had that
you
career
have to,
pathing.
yeah, if you don't have a career path, they will never
They-
last.
They won't last.
For retention, it's crazy. In 2.5 years, our warehouse employees used to make between $12 and $15 an hour. Now I'm bringing them in at $22 an hour, and that's Amazon has influenced that.
And then I saw that Amazon just said they're laying off 10,000.
I know, because they're not taking care of their people,
Yeah,
and now
that's
they're seeing
right.
the
They're
results of
seeing,
that.
yeah,
People are
Yeah,
jumping
I
ship.
mean,
And
you guys-
they're beating their people up.
yeah,
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know,
Right.
12-hour
Exactly.
I'm
shifts.
starting to sign on bonuses. It's like people take that initial right now, oh, I can get $1,000, $2,000, $5,000. And but then again, the culture of it in the end doesn't make it
Mhm.
and they go elsewhere.
Even in corporate, so
Mhm.
I have friends that have countdowns on their cell phones if they're giving their 3 years to Amazon, and after that, they are going out because then they have access to the stock options.
Mhm.
But they sell their soul to the devil. They are working
Yeah.
60+ hours a week. They hate their job like no other, but they're doing it for the compensation because Amazon has it.
Right.
And that's why we're saying compensation has increased like we've never seen in the last
Crazy.
20
What you're
years.
doing right now, it's crazy what we're
Wow, so
offering.
you're paying, yeah.
Yeah, so all that stuff comes into play. So when you guys are looking at these data points, it helps you. What was really fascinating to me is when you look at time off.
Time off.
Who is taking their vacation time, who is not? Who has tons banked? What we found is the people that have tons banked are actually the people that will leave you. They get a payout afterwards if you have PTO,
Huh.
but they're burnt out because they're not taking the time off. Either
Yeah.
one, they feel so burnt out. I mean, I've been that person, right? Where I'm like, I can't go on that vacation. I have too much work going on. And so if you have those souls, they're gonna keep getting burnt out and eventually they'll say, peace out. So thinking about it from that way, you guys can pull those reports and see who's taking time off.
Yeah.
And you can actually gauge that.
But one of the things that I hold managers responsible for is that if your people still have time off in their banks, you're not doing your job. And what I had to change for these people to change the way they were thinking, the employees, is sick time is a carryover. Vacation
Yes.
is a use it or lose it,
Use it or-
and they're using it.
So if people are doing that, or
Yeah.
we've seen the other one is if you're at your max, so let's say you offer 25 days when you start with someone, if they have 25 days sitting in their bank, they're not making any more PTO until that time is used.
Yeah.
And you have about a year to start utilizing it so you can start
Yeah.
reoccurring again. So again, those are some of the new things. The last piece I'll go over just because we're having wonderful discussion here and I want to get through these slides pretty quick so that we can continue that conversation is stay interviews. If you don't do stay interviews, do stay interviews. You can Google it. You can see what the top, I think it's 11 to 13 questions that you can ask. Either you as HR can do it or your managers can do it, but the data that comes out of there is staggering. You'll find out who's actually engaged and who's not. You'll find out where they want to go if you're not doing one-to-ones, because I think those are key as leadership. Pulse scores. So when you do your pulse surveys or your engagement surveys, are you asking the same questions or are you switching out maybe 1 or 2 questions so that you can get a pulse of what's going on? So what we've seen now is people are asking questions. How do you like being in the office versus being remote? Is it meeting your needs? Are you happy? We even have in that question, like, are you actively looking? People will answer. It's truly anonymous. If you're doing it the right way, we cannot track who's answering these questions. So again, it's great data for us to figure out as how we're doing workforce planning, where we're gonna get hit with the turnover. The last piece is just talking about growth. Your leaders in the business side should be able to tell you where expansion is taking place and where business growth is taking place. If we know those nuggets, it helps us get a better idea of where we're gonna need talent and our pipeline that we need to build in the next year to 18 months. All right, so if you decide that you want to build out a talent program and you want to do some of that non-traditional stuff, that's what I've been doing the last 3 years, is really tapping into talent within the community and building it out. So we just talked about taking that talent and getting that data from the workforce so that you can figure out the areas that you could do this. The next step would be what skills are needed. So when I was talking to you guys about transferable skills, you would need to do that brainstorming activity. And it might be you with an individual contributor or with a leader that can actually spew out what those skills are. Number 3 is then talking about what industries have those skills, right? So you got them all laid out now. Now where do they transfer into somewhere else? Step 4 is where do you want to help the community? So here's what the interesting part is. With the generation that's just getting out of school right now, one of the questions they will always ask in an interview is, how are you giving back to the community? That is more important to them than ever before. So you can no longer give a BS answer. You actually have to show action of what you're doing with nonprofits to give back to the community. Well, lo and behold, did you guys know a lot of nonprofits actually do upskilling and reskilling? Tons of nonprofits. That's where I've been tapping into my talent. Doesn't really cost our organization anything other that we are spending time with them and we are hiring them in. That is their goal, is to get into an organization. But that means that they might not have the traditional background of what you've hired with before. If you don't know where to start with nonprofits, any DEI person in your LinkedIn realm or that you have in your network is going to be able to tell you where to start. Or the best part is, if you're already donating to a nonprofit or involved with a nonprofit, ask if they're doing cohorts. Do they have upskilling or reskilling? Or ask them, hey, if we're looking for this talent, would you have a recommendation? 9 out of 10 times they will have a recommendation. And worst case scenario, if you can't find anybody that can help you, Chamber of Commerce in your area can help you. They'll tell you the nonprofits that are locally. The last idea is that you gotta socialize the idea. You can't do this all by yourself being HR. You literally have to figure out who you can work with to make this a success, because you can find the talent that you want to bring in. You can build out the learning and development component from the training with your trainer or your L&D department, but you need leaders to buy into the program to make it happen. I'll give you guys a couple examples in a second, just so you can kind of put the whole idea together. So these are just some examples of nonprofits that are in the area, either nationally or locally, that actually do cohorts. And they're all based on different diversity categories. And I'll send you guys this PowerPoint too, because I see a lot of you guys taking pictures, which is awesome. But you'll have access to this afterwards. We'll send it in a follow-up email. These are organizations that their goal is to help these people get into the workforce. And so they want to collaborate with organizations that want to work with them. So I'll give you the example about Next Chapter. I don't know if you guys know anything about people that have been formerly incarcerated, but our system in the government is not set up for success. That's why 80% of them go back to doing what they were doing, because they don't have support. They get about $100 when they get out of jail, and they're supposed to somehow make it work in finding it. Well, there is a lot of organizations that bring people in to help them with the skills so they can get back into the workforce. I've built a couple programs with justice involved people. Next Chapter is an IT boot camp, meaning that right when they get out, they go into a 3-month boot camp where we support them to make sure that they have electronics, IT, and they can do cybersecurity, or they can just do coding and developing. And we will host them for 5 months to see how they do after they get out of that boot camp. We placed 100% of the people that have come on board with that. Our managers don't know about it. We have special background checks that take place that we work with legal to make that happen, so that no one is having biases. Because let's be honest, I had a bias when I was looking into this, saying, I don't know if this is a good idea or not. But learning about what they've been able to experience, there's a simulation that you can do online that really describes to those leaders that would be taking on this person, to let them know that this is some of the things that they're battling, and we're able to give them resources they wouldn't have without it. Abilities, I call it abilities, even though it's disabilities. I have a couple programs that have worked in my call centers. When I was telling you guys I have really high turnover, I work with an organization called Ability to Go, that is a staffing agency that is nonprofit, where they'll train and develop people to get back into the workforce. And one of the dreams of people that do have a disability is to work in corporate America. That is their dream. They want to be able to be treated like everybody else, and they haven't had that experience throughout their life. So one of the biggest issues I ran into with leadership when I was getting Abilities to Go is they said, people that have disabilities, they're on the spectrum, like they don't have good customer service. And what we found is once we get the leaders to buy into it, because again, any of this stuff, you got to train your leaders about this so that it can be successful, and you got to figure out what extra help would this group population need. But they're running circles around people that are not on the spectrum working in the call center. And we've been able to expand it out to 6 different call centers, but we started off in one call center as just a pilot. So there's a lot of opportunity if you're willing to put in the time, effort, and energy. And let me tell you, want to know how great we've been able to promote this externally to build our brand about how we're giving back to the community. It's done wonders. And internally, we've had other leaders say, I want to get involved. How can I bring that into my organization? And so these are just some examples of some really good organizations that are out there. I have connections with them because again, that's kind of what I do in my realm, is just really working with nonprofits and making the world a better place and giving people purpose. So I can talk to you more about this, but I wanted to give some examples just so you can see that they do exist, because people will tell you it doesn't exist. It does. Okay, so this is one of my last slides. It's just, what can you do? We talked about a lot of stuff. I told you about transferable skills and how that's the future. I talked to you about how you can build out programs and build out your pipeline, very high level, because we only have an hour together. But these are things that you want to think about as you're thinking about 2023 and the future of the workforce. You need to be an employer of choice. That means you need to start building out talent branding. We have now become marketing in HR. That is something new that's probably been the last 3 to 5 years, that we now have to understand marketing and how it works. Because if you don't have a brand out there, it takes 21 times before someone will actually apply to a job if they've never heard of you. So I'll give you the example. That could be that they read an article about us. It could be that they see a commercial. It could be that they hear that we're at a career fair. Whatever it may be, you need to have those interactions with them. So that means you need to figure out marketing. And a lot of times, if you're a smaller organization, you don't have a very big marketing team. So could it be that you start applying to be a best place to work? Assurance wins over 100 awards a year being a best place. They do TA marketing. That's kind of where I learned the skill, why I worked here 5 years ago. Other things that you want to do is meet your workforce where they're at. You need to start thinking about benefits as an a la carte. Where I'm at, I'm a single mom with 2 little kiddos. I'm going to have different needs than someone that has no kiddos, but they have pets. They might need pet insurance. I might be thinking about, dang, how am I going to afford college? I need to figure out some kind of plan. There should be benefits that help us where we're at in life. And as my life changes in my chapter, I'm going to need different benefits. So when you look at your workforce, that's how it should be. It should be like you're going to a buffet. You get to pick what you want and what works for you.
So what we end, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go right ahead.
What we offered is, I think it's $16 per employee per month, which comes up to like a 25-cent raise, essentially. And it's called Healthiest You. And it's teledoc 24/7 and mental health support, unlimited. And when you call the mental health, you don't end up with just anyone in a call center. You are literally assigned an agent and you stay with, if it's not a good fit, they'll help you find someone else. 16 per month per employee.
Beautiful.
That's
You're paying, the
retention.
organization's paying that.
Yes, the employer.
Yeah, the
is
employer,
paying.
yeah. And are they using it?
Yes,
Oh.
yes. We had a pink eye situation. We had a sinus infection. 8 o'clock in the morning, call. She was, go to Walgreens, your amoxicillin or whatever's there. They are utilizing mental health. Of course,
Yeah.
we don't know how often
Right,
or
sure.
what have you.
But
Unlimited, not 3.
what is that called?
It's called Healthiest You.
Healthiest?
Healthiest You. I can, if you give me a call, I'll
Yeah.
talk with you about it.
Okay.
But it's really talk about retention and talk about attainment. COVID has done that.
Yeah,
So that's a big one.
Yeah, you're meeting people right where they're at.
Right.
Right?
You
You're making it
have to.
convenient.
Yeah.
One of the ones that I've loved is EAP. I actually changed a benefit plan that they get it after they leave us. They get it for 6 months afterwards.
oh, nice.
So you still get your mental health. You can still talk to someone. You still get all those resources that you would
Yep.
have had internally. You know what it cost us? Like $4 extra a month per person. Like it was worth the investment. And again, when we talk about the employee experience, we're helping people land softly on their feet even after they leave us.
Right.
So the last thing you want to do is have that nasty taste in your mouth when you leave an employer. You want to leave on good terms with that, because you
Yep.
never know when that person might come back. But Debbie, I think you had something. Did you raise your hand? Sorry. All right. The other piece is your CEOs. What should be keeping them up at night should be about hiring, retention, and DEI. If they don't know about those areas, I'm questioning your leadership here, because this is the things that should be keeping up when we think about that workforce. And then the gig economy, when you look at workforce planning, if you haven't thought about bringing in part-timers, you are behind. I'm telling you, we are going to get killed, and there's so many companies that are behind because they are not looking at contingent as an opportunity. Do you know how much it would cost to have someone you don't pay benefits for them? When you look at our benefits and what we pay for an employee, it's about 50% of their salary. You're now having someone that's cheaper labor that wants to come in and wants to work part-time. Why will you not let them come through your door? So it just doesn't make any sense, but people are like, they're not dedicated. They're not engaged. Man, you're meeting them where they're at. They're saying, I am going to be engaged because you are giving me an opportunity to actually let my life be balanced out.
Right.
So it's just things to think about. And then lastly is about that talent, building that pipeline of non-traditional talent and bringing them in. There's a lot of opportunity out there and you should start exploring it. If you're not familiar, I'm a resource. That's all I got. Thank you so much. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
the dialogue. Questions, thoughts? We got 5 minutes, guys. We did good. We cut it close.
Yeah, yes.
Nothing, you did good.
You did a great job.
Okay, we're gonna
The
stop.
discussion,
Yes.
sharing best practices.